right, welcome to the podcast. I am about to butcher someone's last name, but I'm doing my best here. Natacha Mdawar, how are you
Correct.
doing?
Good. I'm awesome. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I'm excited. I feel like in my kind of, I guess, my own journey lately, I've been doing a, I guess what I would call a deep dive into yoga and not really intentionally. It's just kind of like where I'm being directed. And so you're obviously a really passionate yoga teacher, among other things. So yoga teacher, public speaker, and then co-founder of XPath. So I'm excited to kind of break down each of those areas. But and you're coming from Montreal. How is it in Montreal these days, weather-wise? It's shitty here.
Uh, Honestly, here it's still not that bad. I was expecting that end of November it'd be cold. We might have freezing rain, but honestly, it's gray. It's raining, but we're like 2 degrees, 3 degrees. It's pretty chill so far, and I'm not complaining because I'm not a winter person, so I'm not in a
Yeah.
rush for winter.
Yeah, I we don't really experience a lot of freezing rain here. I'm in Calgary.
Mm.
I was in Toronto once and I woke up to these, freezing rain warnings and I was just like, "Oh my God, what a bunch of wimps. Like, give me a break. It's raining in January, like good." And then we went outside and was a skating rink. The vehicles were covered in like an inch of ice. I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is
Ah,
insane."
yeah. It's dangerous. It's scary. It's not a fun thing to have. No. We have
No
it here a
kidding.
lot. We just got to be mindful. This is when you got to engage your core and walk mindfully.
Yeah, no kidding, hey? So, okay, I was saying before we started, where to start, because I kind of want to unpack everything. I'm gonna start with XPath. I want to kind of see what your vision is for XPath, and then kind of work backwards to how you got to this point, if that's okay. So, talk about XPath and what the vision is there.
Yes. So interesting that you're starting with this because this is the latest project, my latest main focus with my business partner, Yasmin. So expat came from me brainstorming with my friend who was pretty similar. And interest-wise, we're passionate about storytelling, movement. I actually met her at one of my yoga classes. And long story short, we built on a beautiful relationship. She came to one of my retreats with her mother. Long story short, we're here now, and in October, we officially married the business. We're both co-founders of Expat. And
Nice.
what Expat is we realized here in Montreal, there's a gap missing myself in the yoga industry in the way yoga teachers introduce yoga, there's a missing link, and we found that it's the storytelling. So, what we're trying to create, it's still a seed where we have a business coach who's following us. But what we want to do, I'm going to explain a bit the bigger vision and then I'll break it
Mm-hmm.
down.
Yeah,
The
please
bigger
do.
vision is we want to create a hub here in Montreal where everything I and Yasmin love and are passionate about, we bring it together in one space, in one hub here in Montreal. So storytelling, everything that has to do with movement, whether it's yoga, whether it's just mobility work, whether it's dance, and just a stage where we can invite speakers because we're big on TED Talk. We actually just went to our first TED Talk here in Saint Laurent, and we just assisted to a beautiful line of speakers who had so many things to share. And we're like, we don't have this in Montreal that is accessible every week unless there's an event, maybe, but there's no such thing as a hub where we can do all of these combined. So we want to create the safe space with a stage where people are going to come and share their stories, but we also want to introduce it in a somatic way. So you know how public speaking is number one fear, maybe even more than
Mm-hmm.
that, and we want to break
Mm-hmm.
that. So we want to integrate storytelling, but to connect with our bodies before we go on stage or before we're sitting in front of people and just sharing. Because back in the days, this is how we used to entertain ourselves, storytelling around the bonfire, and this is how we used to connect. And now, unfortunately, with technology and just living such a fast-paced life, we disconnected completely. People don't even want to look you in the eyes, and it's sad. So we want to bring that back, but in a holistic approach. So this is what expat is about, and why X and why path? Because in society, we were inspired by the Matrix. So in society, they tell you to choose the red pill, the blue pill. But how about I choose my own path? How about I put an X on where I want to go? If I want to be a dancer, if I want to be a yoga teacher, if I want to be a football player, you put an X on what your passion is, like really what makes your heart dance. And
Hmm.
then you don't know the path, but you kind of draw it and you find your way. So our how can I say, our avatar client, it's really specific, like it's visionaries, dreamers, because we dream, we're big visionaries, and we want to bring people who have something to share, who want to share their voice, but don't have the space to do it. And we want to create that space. So
Nice.
this is a bit what expat is.
I
And
love
I'm
that.
so excited for this project.
So you mentioned the storytelling component of it, but you said that you want to focus on movement first and then the storytelling. Why is it important in your mind to start with movement?
Yes, because before we share a story, there's things that happen in the nervous system, and we need to make sure we connect with the physical part of it, with the body, what's happening inside before we even speak. So this is what somatic is. Somatic means body. And before you do anything in life, whether you're going to ride a bike or whether you're going to speak in public, there's
Hmm.
things happening in the body. So why we want to bring that holistic approach? It's because, interesting enough, when you're excited or when you're nervous in the body. But because we've been conditioned to fear public speaking, maybe the reality is deep down we're just excited. But because
Hmm.
the symptoms of having our heart race, our hands, palms sweating, trembling, and just wanting to disappear, because we feel that, we are always in fight or flight. So, what
Hmm.
happens before you even go to share a story or speak is that the nervous system really believes that it's in danger. And that's
Hmm.
really a good thing to do because, again, back in the days, we used to be in survival mode. So our body had to stay in the sympathetic nervous system and it had to fight or flight. But when we
Hmm.
go on stage or when we want to share a story or when we want to be vulnerable, we need to understand that we have the power as human beings to exit the fight or flight and just go on chill mode. Like, hey, there's no lion, there's no bear attacking me.
Yeah.
Can I relax? Can I breathe? So it's really important to connect to the body first. Breath work, meditation is like a beautiful way to really get to relax the nervous system and kind of go in the parasympathetic where you're good, you got this. And then if you focus on that, then everything flows. Storytelling, public speaking, and just sharing whatever you need to share, but connecting with the body first.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned that your journey started with yoga. Um, I'm curious, like, where did your interest in yoga come from? And a question that I asked, I think before we hit record, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on is does yoga start like when you got into yoga initially, was it something that you were missing? Did you feel that you were missing something physically, mentally, spiritually? Like how did you um what was your intention when you first started doing yoga?
Yes, so for sure it started physically, but I had no idea what it was going to do later on in life. So it's actually my cousin who told me, hey, let's go do this hot yoga class. And I was never really into the gym or I never really worked out. I was just a soccer player who played soccer and then injured my knee and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of ignored it. And then when my cousin told me to come try yoga, I'm like, okay, I went. I hated my first few experiences. I'm like, what is this heat? I don't know how to move this way. I'm so not flexible. And I kind of just neglected it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was kind of lost and confused in school because I didn't really know what to do. I decided with that same cousin who introduced me to yoga, we decided to go to South America for 3 months backpacking. And I come from a really disciplined, family, like very strict, Lebanese, Armenian, very like in the box. Even the high school that I went to was super strict. So I never really was able to step out of my comfort zone, I can say. So
Hmm.
this trip to South America changed me. Like I always say this, I'm like the Natasha that went never came back. And there I started noticing people doing yoga, doing acro yoga, and then journaling. I'm like, what do these people write? Everybody had a little notebook and writing and writing. I'm like, what is this? So I started, asking questions. I became more and more curious. And there I started doing a bit more yoga, but still didn't get hooked. Moving forward is a long process. I came back. I went to Idalem, which is a hot yoga studio here, did a few classes, started to like it. Then again, confused, traveled, went to Benin, so it's in the West Africa, right next to Nigeria. And I was supposed to go for 6 months to do this like humanitarian project. And long story short, COVID hit. I came back, I had to quarantine, and this is where my love for yoga began. So I was not feeling good. I was confused. I thought I had like my next 6 months planned. And then my reality shook. I'm like, okay, I need to do something. I need to move. I felt like I was stuck in my own body. So I went on YouTube, started a 30-day yoga challenge. 30-day became 60 days. 60 days became 90, and then I got hooked. And believe it or not, like 4 years ago, Nat, I had road rage. I had anger inside of me. I was like that pure immigrant Lebanese woman using her honk and just I was not okay. I had things in my body that I needed to release, but that I was suppressing. Little did I know that when I started practicing yoga, my road rage disappeared. And then a light bulb switched. I'm like, something is happening with this yoga, and it's not just physical, right? And when I started realizing, wow, I'm regulating my emotions, how don't I have road rage anymore? Because what is road rage, right? It's rage that you have in your body. And for me, it came on the road. Some people, it comes out to their partners or in different forms. So I
Hmm.
started digging deep, emotional intelligence. And what parallel to all this, I was in public speaking. I'm part of Toastmasters. I always love to use my voice. So in that, I had that. And then I understood emotional intelligence. And then I just started linking the dots. And I understood, oh my God, yoga is not even physical. It is, but I can regulate my emotions. I can understand who I am. I could just heal. And there I fell in love.
So where
And that's
does
a bit how I fell into yoga.
I love that. Actually, what's funny is I'm connecting dots personally that I hadn't necessarily connected because although I still love honking my horn, don't get me wrong, but I was just thinking I was having a conversation with someone about Toastmasters the other day. And because I feel like we all have whether it's emotions or feelings inside of us and different things help us express things differently. And for me, um, and you pointed this out before, but public speaking is something that I do sometimes, but it certainly is a fear. I've never walked into a group and felt comfortable with that. Um, so it's really interesting that you mentioned Toastmasters. Just quickly on that, what is Toastmasters for anyone that's never heard of it? Because I always picture some like Toastmasters being for groups of like, you know, um, downtown executives or maybe someone sitting in the basement of a church. But I'm picturing like people over 70 doing this. What is it like? You're a young woman. How did you get into it, and what is it all about?
Yes. So honestly, Toastmasters changed my life. I started Toastmasters before even teaching. And I think I'm the teacher that I am today because of Toastmasters. So a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur, he really is the one who really helps me in my journey of like personal development and just entrepreneur and how to think like a businesswoman. And we were in college, I think, because I've been 5 years now. I'm 30, 25, not even. Yes, he mentioned it in college. He's like, have you heard of Toastmasters? I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah. And I just kind of ignored it. But then moving forward, when I started really just entering into the world of evolving and personal development right before Toastmasters, just before yoga in university, I fell on Lisa Nichols. And I don't know if you know, but she's just a motivational, transformational speaker. And right under on YouTube, I saw winning Toastmasters district contest, and Toastmasters came again. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe
Mm.
this is a sign the universe is talking to me. I need to dive in. So I started searching here in Montreal where the clubs are. So Toastmasters is a nonprofit organization that exists all around the world. And interesting enough, it started with men. So 100 years ago, this man noticed that these men are missing like public speaking skills and business and all that. And they started gathering up every week and doing these meetings. And until this day, it stands and it's such a successful place. So I found my club here in Montreal. It's called Speak with Style. And believe me, Mark, I went in that day. So it's a meeting of 2 hours. The first part of the meeting is the prepared speech. People go to work on their communication, but also on the leadership skills. And they prepare. You have a specific time frame to do your speech. Then there's a grammarian who is listening to the filler words. If we're using proper English grammar, if everything, like we also use a word of the day, so we encourage people to use like a new word. And it's so nicely done. So prepared speeches, you have a pathway to follow. So if
Hmm.
I could rewind a bit, when you enter Toastmasters, depending on who you are, you choose a pathway. So for example, my pathway is motivational strategies because ever since I was young, I always had a story to share and I always motivated people. So I knew that I wanted to go in motivational strategies.
Mm.
But some people are businessmen, so they go for innovative planning. Some people want to just be a comedian, so they go in the humor pathway. So depending on what you want to do, you pick a pathway, and then there's 5 levels. And within those 5 levels, you have projects to do. So first part of the session is prepared speeches. We have evaluators that are going to evaluate you for everything. And this is where it becomes so valuable because we evaluate your tone, your eye contact, your vocal variety, if you're using the stage, nonverbal communication. How is your posture? Is it open? Is it animated? Or is it closed? Are you using props? You know, when you present something, if you're talking about a mirror, the more you add, the more your story becomes interesting. So you have people evaluating you week after week, and you get to leave with now it's no longer in paper form, but when I started, it was in paper form. I used to leave with like 20 paper form of constructive feedback
Hmm.
and be like, okay, I need to work on this. Okay, I need to like have my eyes open when I talk because I'm a passionate woman. I'm always closing my eyes. And I just started understanding, okay, I need to better this, 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 this. And the most exciting part of this session is the second part. It's improv. So
Hmm.
it's called table topic, and someone prepares questions. They come on stage and they randomly pick someone from the audience, whether it's a guest or a member, and you have 1 to 2 minutes to come on stage and to answer. You invent a story, you do whatever, but this allows you to think fast on your feet because unfortunately, life doesn't always give us time to prepare. It's good for interviews, it's good for like situations where you need to, like, okay, we need to find a solution. So that part, I love it so much because it's so uncomfortable. But just like in yoga, we need to sit and learn how to become friends with discomfort, and then you realize, okay, you grow, right? Because when you're comfortable, you stay stagnant. And so this is Toastmasters. You get to meet people, you build a community, and you also learn so much. It's because of Toastmasters that I learned what emotional intelligence is, what critical thinking is, the power of storytelling. And the first time I went to that club, Speak with Style, because I visited different clubs, you got to connect with the club,
Mm.
right? I knew that I was exactly where I needed to be. And I felt like I was in my element. And ever since, I'm still a member. Actually, tonight there's the contest of our club, and I'm the target speaker. So I'm going to be speaking, and I have people evaluating me. And I'm telling you, it just allowed me to become a better yoga teacher because of the public speaking.
Mm,
And I always say this, I have two passions in the world. It's public speaking and yoga. And yoga made me realize how much I love the storytelling, the aspect of it. And this is a bit Toastmasters. I encourage everybody to go. Like I always tell parents, I'm like, if you want to make your kid so confident, bring him to Toastmasters.
right.
Because unfortunately, this generation, zero communication skills, zero
Hmm.
confidence, and we don't know how to use our words. And we don't even know the power of the words we use. We just use them. We're just talking and saying nonsense, but we really need to practice our communication. I feel like it's number one. It's so important.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And a lot of what you're yeah, well, a lot of actually that was a really good sales pitch for Toastmaster because I think it's something that I know I could definitely benefit from. So that's really cool. You want to be you are a public speaker. Where did that come from? Where did that passion come from? Um, and what's kind of your end goal with that, or what's your vision for like how you can kind of affect the world positively through public speaking?
Yes. So honestly, it came from when I went to Toastmasters that first night, I remember. And then I did a speech. It's called the Icebreaker speech. I
Hmm.
spoke about my trip of South America and I went into like just a personal story. The feedback I received and seeing how people were just locked in, there I understood everything. There I understood that I have a voice
Hmm.
and I need to use it. And when that COVID happened and I told you the yoga came in and I started doing the challenge, I remember doing a breath work and it was a pretty intense one. I was on Zoom with this facilitator who really made us do this next level breath work.
Hmm.
And there I went into a trance and I heard this like voice. I don't know how, I still don't know how to describe it. It was like a godly something, like very interesting. And I remember hearing that voice telling me, make sure to never forget to use your voice, use your voice, use your voice. And it just stayed with me. And then, honestly, it's really because of yoga that I understood back my love for public speaking. Because the reason why I'm thankful always that my classes are always full, are always waitlisted, it's because how I bring yoga is through form of storytelling. For example, yesterday I came in and it was very hard for me to show up because with this expat, we've been having a lot of hype, but there's a lot of haters too, people that want to see you shine, but when they see you shine more, they want to kind of dim your light. And it's been a very overwhelming month for me. And I told myself, Nat, just show up because as much as you give, the students are going to give you. And I entered and I began like this. I went to the wall and I looked at everybody. I'm like, guys, it was tough for me to come here tonight. I didn't want to be here tonight, but I know that as soon as I'm here and as soon as I enter my element, I will receive so much. And then I explained a bit why I didn't want to show up, da 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 da. And then I just shared a part of my story, and I was told as soon as I entered the studio, excuse me, I was told the third, because I was teaching two classes, and the third class, the teacher couldn't make it. And I was asked if I could replace the third class. And I was looking at my students and I'm like, guys, I barely made it for both of my classes, and now they wanted me to do the third one.
Yeah.
And I always talk about like when you say no, mean your no. And when you say yes, mean your yeses. And I looked at them and I'm like, I was in the car before I come up here. I was in the car battling in my mind. Should I take it? I'm already here. I feel bad. But then I'm like, no. I closed my eyes. I reflected. I'm like, is this for me or is this for them? And I couldn't say no because I couldn't, yeah, I said no because I couldn't say yes. And I was looking at them. I'm like, this is yoga given a situation where do I please, do I say yes because I'm already here, or do I listen to my body and say no? So I used a story to bring a moral of the story. And believe me, Mark, it was one of the best classes I've ever given. Why? Because of the power of storytelling. Because the moment where I didn't just dive in, and it was an abs and core class. So people are not here to listen. People are want to just come, build strength and sweat, like they're in
Yeah.
that mindset. But no, I took the time to share a story, and instantly I saw everybody. They instantly connected with me. And after class, everybody came and see me. Like they showered me with so much love. Like, don't let the haters put you down. And it was so beautiful. And this is where the love of public speaking comes from, because even without the yoga, when I share my stories everywhere in any setting, whether it's dating, networking, or whatsoever, people need to feel that human connection, and this is what we're lacking.
Hmm.
And this is my love for public speaking and just storytelling.
One of the things that you said there that caught my attention was I'm gonna butcher this, but basically you're saying like, some people want to receive your light, and then some people, when they're receiving your light, that they're not able to, I guess is what I'm getting at. I had a really good conversation with somebody um, last week, a guy that I had on the podcast a little while ago, and he did some pretty amazing stuff. He ran 125 kilometers to raise money for a friend, and he got a lot of attention as a result, and he's had a lot of really positive opportunities. Um, so I was chatting with him on the phone last week sometime, and he was commenting that there was a lot of positivity that came from it, but surprisingly a lot of negativity as well. Not a lot. I'll say that the positivity outshone the negativity for sure. But I think he was caught off guard by the negativity, and how people, as you would say, as his light was shining brighter, some people weren't able to receive that. Have you felt that or experienced that in your life?
1,000,000%. I experienced it when I first began my yoga journey, and now I'm experiencing it all over again with expat. And
Hmm.
I'm so happy that I experienced it the first time, and I'll go back to that, because now with my business partner, it's harder for her to understand that when you do something big, it's always duality. You'll have the people who are gonna encourage you, and then you have the people who will feel triggered, and you're gonna feel a bit of
Hmm.
like envy, hate, or jealousy, whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it. And I'm so glad that I live this, because now I get to not only tackle it better, but I can actually help my business partner to make her understand that this is part of the process. This is
Hmm.
going to happen and we can't avoid it, but we will be able to control it and embrace it. So when I started my yoga journey, I was a receptionist at the same yoga studio I'm teaching now. So I was there for about 2, 3 years. I was able to build a lot of connection with the clients before I even teach. So that
Hmm.
for sure helped me. I did my certification in a month. It was 1 month intensive. And automatically, when I graduated and I got certified, I dived right in. I was already teaching before the linebackers. So that helps me break the fear. And I dived right into the teaching. And I grew so fast. Like I don't know, maybe because of my passion or something, but my success went like 0 to 100 real quick. And believe it or not, my yoga journey, a lot of teachers inspired me, and the same ones who teach at the studio or all around, I kind of looked up to them. And I always motivated them, and I always told people, guys, you should go try her class, his class, her class. And when I graduated and started to teach, I was sure that those people that I always encourage would come and encourage my class, would come and take my class to give me feedback. And it's
Hmm.
funny you ask me this, because this is also what I shared yesterday in class. I'm like, guys, it's interesting when you start doing you, when you start shining, but like really shining, you're going to really start seeing people's true colors. And this is where you shouldn't take it personal, because the people that I thought would come and support me It's been 2 years I'm teaching. None of those people have come and tried my class.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me. Like, I was like, but why? Like, what is it? And Mark, now I learned, you know, emotional intelligence and understanding where to put what. I learned that it's nothing personal. I realized why this happens and why it will keep happening. It's not because they're mean, it's not because they wish you evil, but when you shine and those people feel triggered, it's not me that's triggering them. It's what I'm doing. They wish they can do it, but they're not doing anything about it. And it's a battle between them and themselves, which creates this emotion. But it's nothing bad. It's no bad intention. It's because they're not maybe aligned where they are in this moment. They're not shining their own light. So when they see that, it feels like an attack. And I always say this, there's three outcomes. When you shine your light, people are going to see it and they're going to be like, wow, and they're going to be so inspired. Then there's the people who are going to see you shine bright. They're going to feel blinded by your light and they're just going to want to like go away. And then there's people who are going to dim and suck your light. And now that I know this, I know where to classify who. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, what keeps me going, it's nothing personal because I'm doing what makes me happy. I'm aligned. I have peace in my mind and I hope to aspire. I hope to inspire. And if you can't see that, it's okay. But I often say this, and this is what I told my business partner. I want to do a video on this topic because I feel it's so important to bring it to light and to just make people aware of this. I tell people if what I'm doing is triggering you, that's a good sign. I want you to take that trigger and I want you to transform it so you could shine your light.
Mm-hmm.
If it triggers you, it means you're alive. It's moving something in your body. It's a good sign. Take that trigger, transform it, and let it inspire you.
I like that. So I'm going to ask you a question. I had a mentor for a friend and a mentor for years, and he was a very positive human being. Um, he passed away a few years ago, but I remember asking him once because he reminded me a lot of you in terms of his energy. But I said, "Is there anything? Has there ever been someone who something good has happened to them, and you weren't happy for them? Like basically, is there something where something happened to someone and he was triggered?" And he thought about it for a minute, and he said yes, and he shared the story of what happened, and it was a recent thing. So I'm just curious despite your best efforts, do you get triggered?
Yes, for sure. I feel like I was triggered once from recently, actually, not long ago. My cousin started joining this mastermind of this guy who's big in Montreal now. He's our age, and he created this school for entrepreneur and just teaching them the ropes.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that my cousin signed up. It's always that same cousin I talk about, by the way, Stephanie. We're very close. And she signed up into that. And it wasn't cheap, like it was pretty expensive. And I found out after, and I'm like, ooh, like there, I felt triggered. I'm like, oh, I wish she told me because we were so
Hmm.
close. We tell each other everything. And now she's going to benefit from the business, from whatever he needs to teach them. And right now, I
Hmm.
can't really afford that. And there, I felt triggered. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Because it was a new feeling for me. And I
Hmm.
sat down and I'm like, why is this triggering me? You know? And as I was meditating, I'm like, it's nothing that she did. I'm actually very happy for her because she's my cousin. She's going to go get value. And I'm sure that whatever she's going to learn, she'll be happy to share it with me.
Hmm.
But then this is where I realized not because it's something that you want to do too. You've been slacking on your own how to pitch or to know how to sell. And it only triggered you because it reminded you that you're not doing what you told yourself you're going to do.
Hmm.
And it didn't take long. It took 3 days. I sat with the emotions, I released it, I voiced it because she sensed a bit of fakeness. Like I was happy for her, but I was not really happy for her. And then as soon as I voiced it, as soon as I sat with my emotions, let it all out, right away my like mind shifted and I'm like, okay. And that motivated me to go back to my program and to complete it and to finish it. It was actually a motivation,
Hmm.
but it took time for me to realize. And it's like Patrick but David wrote a book about know your enemies. Like we need to have enemies, we need to have haters, because if you know how to transform that into your best motivation, oof, you can do so much and you'll grow 10 times faster.
Yeah.
But we need them. We need them.
And I like that because, when you think about being triggered, it's so easy to blame that person, be like, well, they pissed me off and they're whatever, selfish. But yeah, if you can start to identify the feeling of being triggered and really go through that, like that exercise that you described, and really figure out, okay, what what is it about? Because oftentimes it's, or I would say for me all the time, it's not a conscious decision to feel that way. It's like, oh wow, you just are overwhelmed with, like, you know whether it's like frustration or jealousy or whatever. And it's really good to be able to kind of sit with that. And to your point, it's almost always because you're not doing something in your own world that, and that, and you can't lie to yourself. You know what I mean? That feeling is brought on by your own actions, right?
100%.
So I'm curious, you talk about balance, and every time I ask people about balance, I get different answers. But you said, for me, balance comes from paying attention to my breath and staying present. um, and then you say, I've also learned to recognize when it's time to take a break and slow down to fill my cup. So I you know I'm always on that cusp of, I'm trying to balance my life, but I have two kids, I have a business that I happen to really love. And so I'm trying to be continuously trying to be creative and push the envelope with what I do for work. I also love hanging out with my kids. I love taking time off. I love camping, all that stuff. So it's a constant juggle. um how, what I'm curious about is, are you aware of when you need to take a break, or do you take a break and then realize in hindsight how much you needed that break? Because I'm guilty of the latter. I'm guilty of, I don't realize that I'm like, really screwing up and really not balancing stuff. And then I'll take a break for a day or two and I'll realize, holy shit, I'm really dropping the ball and, not doing well. So I'm curious, are you able to be more proactive? Because if you are, please share your secrets with me. No, I think I lost you there for a second.
Yes. I love this question because I I used to not understand when to slow down and when I used to take that break or when I used to go to that vacation or camp for the weekend. I would be like, oh my God, I never realized how much I needed it until I slowed down.
Hmm.
But the beautiful part of being a yoga teacher is that I do this full time besides the public speaking. So I repeat so many things, right? For instance, guys, know when to slow down. In Shavasana, you're going to want to move, you're going to want to fidget. Don't fall into your temptation, don't fall into the desire. And let's master the art of doing nothing in a world where doing nothing is a wrong thing. You know,
Hmm.
learn that if you want to achieve, if you want to have that business, you need to master slowing down. It takes discipline to hustle, but it takes more discipline to slow down. And if you can master slowing down, you will hustle more and succeed more. So I am blessed to say that because of repeating, I'm creating these like roadmaps in my body that are really helping me understand when I need to slow down, understand that I shouldn't feel bad that I'm not going to teach for 2 weeks on the 3rd of December because I'm going to Jamaica and I need to go to Jamaica because I need the water, I need my coconut, and I need the sun to recharge so that I could start off strong for 2025 because it's going to be a big year for me and for expat. So I became an expert. I can't, maybe expert is a big word, but closely, like slowly going there because of repetition. I I know I'm becoming better at knowing when to slow down and how to balance that. But like you said before, I also made peace that it's a constant juggle because this reminds me of a documentary which I recommend everybody to watch it. It's called Stutz, and
Sorry, what's it called?
Stutz. So Stutz. It's with John Hill and his psychiatrist, and it's a very raw, authentic documentary. And he talks about the snapshots in life. And when it comes to balance, we often think that when we find balance, this is how our life is always going to be balanced. But we would be fooling ourselves if we truly believe that you can always have your life balanced. It's a constant like juggle and you just become better at it, you know? Like
Hmm.
before you used to drop balls and now you're like you just became stronger, you built muscles and you just handle balance better. And this is also tied to meditation, you know. Our thoughts are always going to come in, we're always going to be distracted, and that's not something we could avoid, but you just become better at snapping out of it and understanding that you control your thoughts. So
Hmm.
same thing with balance. The more you slow down, the more you realize that this is not a destination. This is something that I will always have to juggle with. And when you understand that, when you make peace with that, you just learn how to control it better, you
Hmm.
know? And this is the thing about balance. It's not something you achieve. You just learn how to do it better and better and better. But it's always gonna be a constant, you
Yeah.
know? It's a long lifetime process.
I think it's actually a friend of mine that I do a lot of biking with, and he's a yoga instructor, and yeah, just an overall. I would say I look to him a lot for advice and stuff, and I remember talking about something once, and I'm like, just when I think I've got it figured out, I screw up, and he's like, yeah, that's why it's called the practice, And I think everything that we do is called the practice because we're we're always not quite there. You know what I mean? And we kind of have to approach things as like, everything is a journey and we'll never fully achieve anything. It's a journey towards that, right?
Yes. And because as human beings, we constantly need stimulation. Because if you do achieve that, like this is the perfect example of, let's say, people who succeed. I think Jim Carrey says that. He's like, I hope everyone in the world to have all the money that they want to realize that it's not everything. And when you reach that goal, whether it's a business goal or as a parent, na na na, you look for something else. So it's
Mm.
never ending. So imagine you found balance in your life. Believe me, chances are you'll be maybe more depressed or like less happy because as human beings, we constant need stimulation. And this goes back like to our how can I say we're always in survival mode. I can say this
Hmm.
is how we thrive. We always have a problem and we always need to find a solution. If everything is balanced, it's stagnant, right? It's like that heartbeat. If everything is straight, it means you're dead. Like you're just existing, but you're not alive.
Yeah.
And when you learn that, because it's cool to say this out loud, but we tend to forget, right? And then life goes on. But this is why we have conversations like this to remind us, like, yeah, like it is actually about the journey and not the destination, you know? The
Yeah,
destination is when you realize that it's about the journey and it's beautiful.
totally. Well, and you talk to people who are, really successful, millionaires, billionaires, whatever, and they romanticize the journey, right? Because that's like that was the fun part of it. When you get to where you are, it's just like, oh man, to relive that would be amazing. So I think I feel like, when with talking with you, you certainly are, I think more people, there's a lot of people that are more comfortable with maybe a little bit less, I don't know, shit happening in their lives. You seem like someone who's just always on the go. What motivates you to kind of keep going and keep, reimagining new goals? Like what motivates you?
Ah, that's it's a big question. Honestly, a lot of things motivate me. I feel like ever since I was a kid, I was a lot made fun of, like, oh, Natasha, you're such a philosophical, you're always like in your head, you need to be more realistic. And I often said, guys, I'm a dreamer. Like, let me dream. If there's one
Mm,
thing nobody can take away from you is your imagination and your dreams, right? Like, even if you're in jail, you could still imagine, you could still dream. That is one thing that I have, everybody has, that nobody can take away from you. And so I always grew up with this like dreamer, like I'm always dreaming. And even in school, like when I went to college and university, I always feel like I was confused because I had dreams, not knowing what the dreams were, but I always knew that I was meant to do something more. And what keeps me going is my family. Like I'm on big on family. I have like support. I have a twin sister. Just fun being a twin. It's a lot of things that happen in my life that make me like motivate me. So the love of my family, my entourage, what I do now that I'm aligned, now that I wake up every morning and I'm truly excited for what I do. I don't feel like I'm working. I just feel like I'm doing something that feels so natural, and it's the connection. I always told myself, if you put me in an office, even if you paid me $300 an hour, believe me, as much as I would love to have that $300 an hour, I will refuse because maybe yes, it's filling my pocket, but my biggest fear in life is that my soul is not being fed. If my pocket and my bank account is growing, amazing. I hope, I wish, I will maybe get there. But if my soul, if my heart is not being fed, it's not dancing,
hmm
oh my God, no. And for me, how I grow, how I stay motivated, how I keep on dreaming is the connection. That's the human. It's this right now. And as long as I have humans around me, as long as I'm working with humans, I'm gonna stay motivated and I just love life. I just love life.
I love that. Can I ask you a what might appear to be a random question?
Mhm.
Um, so you moved to Canada at the age of 6, correct? And you guys moved. You lived in Lebanon before that, correct?
Correct.
So yoga, one of the things that I've had a few conversations with in my life, especially as I've been kind of more curious and leaning into it, is there's a for some people they see yoga as a religious practice. I don't think that many people in the West really think of it that way, but did you have any pushback from family from that perspective that all of a sudden you're going into this like new religious kind of what they might think of as like a cult because it's something that maybe if they're not familiar with they're scared of. So was there any pushback there?
Oh yes, 1,000,000%. I grew up in a Christian family, so my dad is Maronite. It's a form of Christian. My mom is Orthodox, and I went to church every Sunday. And like I told you, my high school was like the principal was a priest, so we prayed in the morning, and I grew up in that. Okay, just to give you a little visual. And so when I started yoga, my mom is like, she didn't really know that it could maybe be a religion. She just thought it was like a physical activity. But then my mom, who goes to church every Sunday, started to tell people, oh, my daughter began yoga. Da, da, da. They're like, yoga? That's the devil's work, the serpent, and I don't know what. And There, I was waiting. I mentally prepared myself that this subject will come up. So I had to prepare, I had to prepare my arguments. And so it came up. My mom sat down with me. She's like, "What is this? Is it true that yoga, it's a religion and you can go deeper and it's like worshiping the gods and the devil and that serpent?" And I'm like, "Mom, listen. For sure, there has been stories where yoga teachers or just people kind of like became into a cult and it went sideways and it didn't really do what people think it would do on a spiritual level. And I had to explain myself like a few times when I went to church or I was in volunteering in the community and in the festivals. I didn't feel the need to justify because I know what I'm doing in my classes.
Hmm.
And the people who've never done yoga will really just listen and depend on the external, what people say. So I had to explain to my mom that anything you do in life, even religion, I'm like, even Christianity, you can take it and make it a bad thing. Money, you can take it, you can do good things or you can do bad things. I'm like, Mom, yoga is not what makes it bad. It's what you do with yoga. It's your
Hmm.
relationship with yoga and how are you giving it? How are you presenting it? How are you sharing it with the people? I'm like, everyone who's hating or everyone who thinks I'm worshiping and doing some cult or religion, it's okay. That's their personal opinion. I hope one day they can come to my class with an open mind and actually see what's happening in these rooms, like magical transformation, release. Like it's beautiful what happens in a yoga room. And then maybe we could have a conversation again. But luckily, the priest of our church is a young guy who's so open-minded, studied psychology. He really was kind of like on my side, and he told them, guys, you can think of yoga, whatever it is, but we need to move. And it allows you, like, he kind of brought it on a physical movement. And he's like, it's really good for you. He does yoga. So imagine the
Hmm.
priest does yoga, and he has seen the benefits of it. So honestly, it depends what type of information you're feeding yourself, who's telling you what, and have you ever taken a yoga class before you share those things? So my mom made peace with it. She understood. She came to my classes. She's seen what I do, and she just trusts in how I do it, how I present it. And like they say, people are gonna judge either way. So just
Yeah,
do.
100%. Okay, one last question for you. You mentioned that you were at a TED Talk a little while ago. You
Mm.
love public speaking, so this has to have crossed your mind. It's on your vision board, I'm going to guess. If you were up on stage doing a TED Talk, what would you be talking about?
Wow. That I already reflected, and it was really hard for me to pick one topic,
Hmm.
but I know exactly what my signature story, you can call it. It's growing up with a twin sister. And when we came from Lebanon, I'll keep this short because I can talk and talk. Coming from Lebanon to here, I have a twin sister. It's only me and her, and she was diagnosed with leukemia the next year. So it was really intense, and my parents were just coming here, adapting the language barrier and just the system. And so when my sister got sick, she lost hair and she went through the whole chemotherapy and everything. I had to do things to make her feel less alone. So I wore the hat to school. I did a lot of things that made my sister feel more welcome, more just less alone. And as I grew up, my individuality, so when you're a twin, there's always constantly going to be comparison. Oh, who's the more adventurous one? Who's the crazier one? And when you grow up with a twin sister, something is quite different than just having a regular sibling. So what my story would be is how it took time for me to understand who I am without my sister. I had to understand that as I grew up, I had really difficulties with feeling pleasure, allowing myself to open up. And one thing that changed my life was hypnotherapy. And my first hypnosis therapy that I did, I was able to meet my younger self, so my inner child. And it's a really interesting story. And there I met my inner child and I understood that my sister was diagnosed with cancer, but it also affected me too. I
Mm,
also had the cancer, but it affected me on a emotional level. And I grew up feeling blocked because I did the association, and all this was through hypnotherapy that I learned, that I realized. I created an association with pleasure that I can't receive pleasure, I can't open up because when I was young, I couldn't feel happy because my sister was almost dying. My sister was sick. So her cancer affected me too. And as us being a twin, we felt a lot of similar things, right? So I grew up having to do things differently because obviously there was more attention given to my sister. But so interesting enough, realizing how one thing when you're a kid could associate and make you do
mhm,
things because of one thing. And my signature story, I'm still crafting it. It would
mhm.
be about this, like how I grew up with a twin sister, how one little thing happened when I was young. And through hypnotherapy, I was able to link the dots. And that completely changed me because I had suppressed a lot in my body and I was able to release it. And this is what we do in yoga, especially in yin yoga, where you hold the positions for longer. I've
Mhm.
seen people cry. I've seen people make weird sounds. It's because we live with things in our body, especially in the fascia. There's emotion stuck. And when they, 100 years ago, when they did autopsies and they thought that fascia was dead skin, they thought it was dead skin, but it's actually a tissue that holds all your organs together and that you store emotions in there. And these emotions can lead up to diseases and a lot of things. I had all these emotions suppressed in my body and I released them in very interesting ways through movement, through yoga, through breath work. And that too like made me want to go into the yoga and just the power of moving because we live things in our bodies and we have no idea, right? So it would be about a bit of all that,
I
but I'm
love
still
that.
crafting it.
Well, I think that, and I've met a lot of people. It's interesting how, like you say, an experience like that growing up makes it changes your relationship with, how you feel you're allowed to receive happiness and excitement. Like I have a friend who, anything good that happens to her, she can't share with her family because they just don't receive it properly. It's just like it's so she learns to not share things that make her happy and almost diminish things that could make her happy because she doesn't feel like she's effectively, worthy of that, which it comes from that whole, like, when you're a kid saying, "Hey, look at this is what happened," and being told, "Hey, like maybe stop talking about that," or maybe, and it's really really cool that been able to kind of work through that and realize, you can receive that kind of happiness and stuff like that, and it is okay. Do you mind if I ask you how's your sister doing?
She's great.
Oh, good,
She's actually pregnant now, and it's the first baby of the family. I'm becoming an aunt in January for a
nice,
little boy, Mateo. So honestly, we've been blessed. My sister is just in another phase of her life where she's becoming a mom, and I couldn't be happier.
good,
Yeah.
good for her, good for you. No, this has been great. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I think that you know, it was interesting kind of connecting all those dots because I'm looking at this going, okay, yoga and public speaking, how did those two connect? And then XPath, I feel like XPath is just you really taking your two passions and putting them together, which is it's always really interesting to see how people do that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much for having me, for receiving everything I had to share. And I maybe we can do another one soon, but this was absolutely fun. And yeah, thank you.
I feel like I have to make a trip to Montreal. I've met so many people through the podcast from Montreal. So when like keep me updated if you could on XPath. I'd love to see how it progresses, and I'd love to come visit sometime.
This is a sign. Let's go, and you can maybe come and take one of my yoga classes. It's
Yes,
hot yoga.
okay. I will. I'm still doing the yoga every morning, which I'm loving. So, and I've been to some classes and stuff. So I'll definitely do that. And you've inspired me also to. I'm going to Google Toastmasters as soon as we're done this.
Yes, definitely do that. Definitely look at the clubs around you, and it's fun. You'll discover yourself. And when you come to Montreal, you know where to find me in a hot yoga room, sweating and
Awesome.
sharing stories.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Natasha.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great
Okay,
day.
you too. Take care. Bye bye.